I'm just wondering if you have any advice for getting like overstimulated and stuff, and like what helps with that.
Yeah, good question. So a few things actually. So for example, like when you guys were dancing and stuff, I had little foam earplugs in, and then I kind of had like big construction headphones on. I kind of like, yeah, Rachel will hold them up. That's what I was wearing. So in situations where it can be like really loud, I'll definitely rely on earplugs so it feels a little bit more comfortable. If I feel my symptoms flaring, it can be really difficult to pull myself out of a situation. So I think it is important to listen to your body, and if you need to take a step away to take a few breaths and ground yourself, I think what I would do is maybe sit against a wall and visually just feel myself being grounded. I'll plant my feet on the ground, and I'll kind of like envision like roots growing so I feel more settled. And also, if I'm in a situation where I'm overstimulated and just my symptoms are really flared, but it's not a situation where I can step out or go anywhere, a big piece of mentality comes in there. I think I was talking to Rachel about this the other day when I was here on Sunday. And a big thing is just recognizing that I am allowed to feel calm and rested even if the environment around me is not that at all. So I will sit there and go in kind of into my mind and just be like, okay, like I understand there's loud noises, there's people talking, my symptoms are flared, but it doesn't mean I'm not safe in my body. So I will kind of just mentally go through that. And what I like to do, what I started within the last year, is I kind of tell myself like, okay, like what are points of safety in my environment? And it can be something as silly as like, oh, there's a fuzzy blanket in the room, or like, oh, like today, like if I were to point out messages of safety, it'd be like, I have my RYLA staff with me, and these are people who have been with me for 9 years. That's a message of safety. And it kind of reminds my body that even though I'm flared and even though there are a lot of symptoms, there's still comfort in an uncomfortable environment. What kept me going? The first year, denial. I know that might sound silly, but the first year of my recovery, I did not realize how severe it was. I mean, I went back to school and I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to run. It was my senior year. I was like, I want to go to states. I want to go to nationals. I'll be all right. And then it was like, oh, I have to defer for college. Oh, I'll just have to defer for 6 weeks. Well, behold, it's been 6.5 years and I'm still deferred from college. So as time went on, I think being able to have things that motivated me and that I found value in other than pre-injury me. So pre-injury me was like, I want to be a vet and I want to run. So I had to kind of understand like, well, who am I without that? And who can I be with more things? So I found joy in the simple pleasures of just like sitting outside, enjoying nature, learning to play piano or just other instruments, connecting with friends. I think when I was able to set goals and like find interests other than that, because it takes a while for you to like change your mindset when you were, I was set on being a vet since I could talk. So I was really stubborn in like letting that go. So when I was able to let go of the dreams I previously made, it opened up like a vast amount of space for me to explore so many other things that I might be interested in. And once I was able to find other interests, I think it was cool to just be able to, watch YouTube videos of someone like backpacking or something, which is something I'm interested in. And that is what kind of helped me stay motivated, and also just keeping the hope of knowing that recovery is possible. And even though it can be really, really difficult, I'd like to hold on to the hope because I would like to continue in life with things that bring me joy and things that make me really happy, and just having things that do those, bring those emotions is what helps keep me motivated.
When did you decide to shift your perspective?
I would say after like the first, so I started vestibular rehab and all of that about 6 to 9 months after my initial injury because I had to make it through school and I couldn't tolerate both of them. So when I started therapy, I actually ended up getting worse. So during that time of me getting worse, having to stop rehab, then going through like a time where it was like trial and error of all these medications, that period of time was really difficult to like have hope and continue to like be like, oh, well, am I actually going to get better? What helped is finding a little bit of balance in my recovery, and that allowed me to like believe in hope a little bit more. And then as time went on and I was faced with my life situation, I kind of had to realize that like, well, what can I change? I can't change my situation. I can do the best I can do in managing the symptoms I have and managing my recovery. But ultimately, what's determining if I'm happy or sad or grateful or like dreading my life is my perspective. And once I was able to gain that awareness and realize that like ultimately my reality is determined by my perspective, I was able to allow myself to just be very happy and positive and love life for what it is, even if it's not what some people may deem as like perfect or easy. But realistically, that's kind of what it's like to be human. It's kind of silly to believe that being human is easy and it doesn't come with pain or like heavy emotions or things that are going to go wrong, because I think it's pretty cool that we can experience difficulties or like hard emotions. It kind of just shows the spectrum of what it's like of experiencing life. So just gaining that perspective within the first 2 years and building upon it. You know, it's not an easy thing. It's not an easy switch. It takes time, like I said, like when you're building new neural pathways and perspective, it takes time to build those patterns to make it feel easier and more comfortable.
What symptom have you felt the most throughout your journey?
That's sometimes a difficult question to answer because a lot of them are pretty constant. I would say the migraine attacks have definitely been something that's been a big obstacle in this recovery, because when we speak about rehab is kind of like forces you to feel symptoms, and that kind of means your brain's working. But because I experience like migraine attacks and have migraine disease, anything would trigger a migraine attack. So it was really difficult to just get through my days because I was just kind of in like a constant state of a migraine attack. And that was really, really difficult. So that consisted of like head pain and like pretty bad head pain. But it was also associated with like dizziness and stuff. I would say the second thing to that would just be my the visual symptoms I experienced. I mean, when I first gave my speech in 2018, I couldn't look into a crowd. You know, I kind of like looked like on the floor. So having the visual sensitivities, a good way to explain it is kind of like if I focused on a point, the wall would kind of like move, even though it wasn't moving. So I would feel really dizzy. And because, you know, you're constantly using our eyes in life, just like walking through my house was very difficult. So definitely the headache and the dizziness would be the two.
How were you affected by COVID?
Yeah, so it's an interesting perspective because a lot of people's lives changed very drastically, and that came with isolation. For me, isolation was something that I was in since 2017. So that aspect of COVID, I didn't feel that because I was already staying home and I didn't really have the capacity to go out anywhere or do anything. What changed for me is my doctor's appointments became virtual, the ones that I could do virtual. And that was actually very, very helpful, because it meant I didn't have to go in the car to my doctor's appointment. That was like maybe 25 minutes away. And being that I could do the doctor's appointments like over the phone or through like Zoom or something, saved me from feeling a flare in symptoms, so that was a big change. And I think it's something that people in the chronic illness community are really grateful to, because leaving your house and going somewhere may not take energy for some people, but for a lot of people who experience chronic physical symptoms, it's a big task to do, and it takes a lot of your energy, and it means that you have to sift through what you have to do for the day. And if you have a doctor's appointment that day, then maybe you're not showering on that day, or maybe you're not doing rehab on that day. So it was definitely very helpful to have the virtual appointments.
How long and how many doctors did it take for you to find out what was happening with all of your condition, with your condition?
Mm-hmm. So when I sustained the concussion, I was actually actively in physical therapy for my ankle because I had sprained it. And being that I was a little stubborn, I went to PT for my ankle, I think it was 2 or 3 days after I sustained my concussion. And I walked in there, I really could barely walk. I wobbled in there, sat down on the table. My PT looked at me and she was like, "Oh, you're not okay." And I was like, So she did a few tests to diagnose concussion and just to see a little bit of what I was feeling. And if it wasn't for my physical therapist who sent me directly to a concussion specialist, I'm not sure where my concussion rehab journey would be, because I got in with a concussion specialist within 2 weeks of my within 3 days of my concussion. So I was very lucky to be able to see a practitioner who was knowledgeable on concussion. But also remember, this is 6.5 years ago. Concussion education awareness has definitely come a long way. So for the first 1.5 years, we kind of did things a little bit differently. I think looking back, we didn't realize I had dysautonomia, the autonomic aspects. We didn't realize that, so we weren't necessarily treating it. And we also, my vision, the way my eyes were working, we didn't realize that my eyes weren't working together. So I got in with a neurologist who's a headache specialist and a neuro-optometrist after the first year. But I've met all my doctors that I've been with for at least 5.5 years, and my concussion specialist since the beginning for 6.5 years. So I was really lucky.
I have 2 questions. The first one is, do you have a place outside of your home that's safe where you won't get overstimulated and you can just kind of relax?
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one is, you said you've been doing this since 2018, as you've been doing this speech, and I just wondered what has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Do you edit your speech every year and change what you have learned?
Yeah. So the first question, do I have a place? So going out and experiencing life has been a relatively new thing for me within the last year. And the place I go to the most would actually be my boyfriend's house, and that's a place that when I first was there, it was new, it was unfamiliar. Walking up the stairs or walking down the hallway, I was like, ooh, I'm a little dizzy. Oh, this floor is a little feels a little different. But I would say that's now a place that I find I can go to relax and feel safe and sit by the lake, or, be with people who have become family and who respect and care for me in that way. So that's definitely been a safe place outside of my house, which I'm very grateful for. And how my speech has changed. Yeah, so 2018 was the first year I gave my speech here. It's changed a lot, a lot. And, oh God, is this the time where it's going to get emotional? And when I first gave my speech here, I could barely talk I talked for 10 minutes because I couldn't talk for too long. I sat here with my weighted blanket, sunglasses on, the lights were really dim. I pre-recorded a lot of my speech It was my first time ever speaking, and after that speech, I laid here on stage with my weighted blanket for like an hour at least because I physically could not like walk and leave. So that's been like a really big change. Man, emotions always hit. And speech writing wise, yeah, a lot's changed. Every year I kind of change it some, depending on what I learned that year and like what I feel like sharing. It's gotten longer, 100% has gotten longer, and it's kind of encapsulates just like everything I've learned throughout the 6.5 years, and because it's always changing, you know, I think it's kind of cool that it just kind of shows that I'm always learning and I'm continuing to grow, whether it's rehab based and physically based or if it's just like mental and perspective. So it's definitely longer. It's much different information. I mean, the concussion education piece that wasn't here till the last two speeches. I believe this is like the third one. Yeah, it's really cool to see the changes. It's really, really cool.
So before you were saying when like you're overstimulated, how you go to like a different place to like calm down or have the headphones. So what are some like other accommodations you have, like for like reading and things like that? So there's a lot. For my phone, I kind of have like color filters on it. For reading, so these are prism lenses, which, very short explanation, it kind of just means it refracts, so it bends the light coming into my eyes at different angles so that my brain perceives things as steady and together, because one eye kind of sees a little bit different in space than the other eye, so it makes my environment seem very wonky, which is why like I explained like how like a wall would move. It's because my eyes aren't working together. So these prism lenses help a lot with the visual symptoms, and I have ones for reading as well. Taking breaks. So for example, like when writing the speech, I would set a timer for 20 minutes of working, at least 10 minutes of break. And when I'm like editing and reviewing my speech or anything that I'm writing, I use Speechify, which is an app that kind of like will read what's the documents are. And even on my phone, I have something that can read texts to me. I use compression socks, as I'm wearing right now, medications, and ice. Ice is always a good one. Essential oils, breathing techniques, a lot of breathing techniques, and just like mindful awareness of how my body is feeling, weighted blanket, and trekking poles. And all that can be used in overstimulation. I'm sure there's like so many others, earplugs, that I'm forgetting.
So, like, throughout your journey, do you feel that you've tried to be like as independent as possible, or are you like very welcome to people helping you? Like, how do you feel about people going about helping you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I had to, in the beginning, the first few years, I mean, I didn't have a choice. I couldn't make my food. I couldn't, really think about meals or anything. You know, I could, like, heat up some oatmeal or something quick. So I relied a lot on my mother to do that, and in many other ways as well. And now I'm beginning to gain a little bit of independence, but that independence comes in ways that, like, I can prepare my food, I can do food, but I'm not the one food shopping. I'm not able to drive currently, so I'm still a passenger, so realistically, I mean, I'm very dependent on people to drive me anywhere. If I'm going anywhere, like it's my mother driving me and picking me up, and I'm very grateful that she's been like very open to dropping me off somewhere and picking me up, and as well as like my boyfriend, he's the driver. Whenever we're going somewhere, it's always him driving. So I think, of course, there's some guilt that comes along with that, of having to be dependent on other people to be able to go out and
do things. And along that, I think there has to come a little bit of acceptance, because I'm not purposely doing this. It's something that if someone had a problem with it, and if someone didn't want to help me out in ways I needed to be helped out with, then maybe that person isn't right to be in my inner circle. And I'm really lucky to not have people like that. I'm really lucky to have everyone around me who has made life more accessible. I mean, even here at RYLA, you heard Amanda speak and all that they do here. It's been interesting, losing independence, and I think it's going to be really, really weird as time goes on and as I continue to improve to gain independence and see what that's like, because this happened as a senior in high school, and when you're a senior in high school, you don't have that much independence. It's been different, watching my friends who are obviously out, living. They have their own apartments, they have their own jobs, and they've really experienced a lot of independence. So I think on that aspect, it can be a little bit a dissonance there, because I'm here still at home with my parents, relying on the people around me, where my friends are out, having real life jobs or whatever people want to call it, and things like that. But I think a big part of it is just acceptance, and it's okay that my life looks a bit different than other people's, and there's nothing wrong with that.
So you spent the past year getting back out into the world. What are some of your favorite things you've done in the past year?
Oh, this is another one that's gonna make me emotional. It's really, really cool to be answering this question, because last year I only had one answer, because I only went out once. Or maybe I went out twice, but really I only had one thing, and it was going to a local waterfall that I grew up going to. And this year I feel like I have so many things that I've been able to do. That I've been able to do and experience, that it's just I feel really grateful for. I mean, I've been out to eat in a little restaurant more than once, which is huge. I mean, I've left my house more in the last year than I have in the last 6.5 years, and I think it's just really cool. I feel like I've done a lot in the sense of my world. So I've gone out to eat a few times. I've gone to a little Sugarloaf fair festival that they had. I went away for a weekend with my boyfriend to the Catskills, which was a huge thing for me to do and be away and do that. Obviously, everything comes with accommodations and things that are accessible to me, and using all my tools and modalities. Being able to just see my family when my brothers come home. I mean, there's just so many. Just going, even just going to a friend's house is huge, and I really feel very grateful just to be able to do something like that. Yeah, there's been just so many cool things.
What has been one of or some of the biggest life lessons that you've been able to learn through your recovery?
Perspective is in the hands of the self, I guess. No matter what is unfolding around you in your environment, around the people who you're surrounded by, the circumstance you're in, what really affects everything is how you feel it. I mean, people can have, there are people who, I don't really like to compare situations, but there are people who might not have it as difficult. Maybe they're not tight on money. Maybe they have a lot of money and they don't have health issues and stuff, but they could still be just really negative and things just aren't enough. So when I like to speak about just the lessons I've learned is truly perspective, and that encapsulates everything. It's learning to be grateful, learning acceptance, learning it's okay to change and to be uncomfortable with the change that's going on. And also another big one is just it's okay not to have an answer to something or to be wrong. If you set a dream for yourself and then all of a sudden you're wait, I don't actually want this. it's okay to like change and understand that as time goes on, you might not want the same things you did when you were younger. And just learning to go through life with positivity and gratitude, I think, really sets someone up to experience a level of resilience that will keep them afloat in like really, really stormy times. And it's not easy, it can be really hard to gain a level of gratitude and positivity if someone is wired to be a person who expresses a lot of negativity or complaining, but that's also not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that, there's a level of self-awareness. You feel like, oh, I'm complaining a lot about this situation. Maybe I can change it a little bit. And over time, you learn to feel things that feel best for you. And that might just be the positivity and gratitude, like I mentioned before. But I think, overall, what's helped me and what the lessons that I've learned is perspective is everything.
Hi.
Hello.
You mentioned how your life goal was to be a veterinarian. What has it kind of transitioned to now, and how has that kind of led you to be able to grow and get towards that?
At first, it was really hard to let go of that goal. And it wasn't because I didn't necessarily feel like I could be a vet. It was because something inside me was interested in something else. But I was like, oh, no, I wanted to be a vet my entire life. But when I was able to allow myself to feel the changes in interest, and it has led to be something that I would say now is more in the brain injury path. So for me, the change from a vet to, I would say now, is some sort of practitioner that works with concussion, chronic illness, and something like that, whether it's a physical therapist or anything that can fulfill that role. And that's allowed me to continue to learn about concussion or people with chronic illness or just people with different adversities. It doesn't have to necessarily be anything specifically diagnosed medical. I think the next thing I would like to pursue is maybe do something like a yoga teacher training, because that's something I'm interested in. It's something that I can make accessible for everyone, and it also sets me up on a path to continue to go to as a physical therapist or something like that.
I'm just wondering what form of communication is easiest for you, less stressful. I'm just wondering.
It depends on the day. I mean, sometimes texts back and forth to my friends and stuff is fine. Social media is a great way for me to connect with my friends as well. And FaceTiming or talking on the phone is a way that I like to connect with people or chat. And it's really just dependent on the day. Some days I feel better texting. Some days I feel better talking on the phone. Ultimately, it really just has to be with something that I can have a level of awareness of where my symptoms are. Like I said in the beginning, I was very much in denial and I kind of ignored a lot of symptoms, and now I'm kind of like I said in my speech, trying to learn to coexist and what that means and how I can go about existing in life with limitations. And sometimes that means, okay, I'm not going to talk on the phone right now, but maybe after I rest and do some deep breathing and stuff, or things that need to calm my symptoms, then I'll have the capacity to go talk on the phone for however long I feel like talking,
Have you had people be really rude because your visibility isn't always visible? Or your disability isn't always visible?
Yeah. Not that I know of. I mean, I never know what other people necessarily perceive. I share my journey a lot on social media, so there could be people out there who are looking at what I'm sharing who have their own opinion and perspective about it, but no one's ever necessarily been purposely rude or invalidating to me and to my situation. I'll say that, thankfully, yeah.
I was just wondering if your condition was rare or it's more common than people would think it to be.
Yeah, so PCS, post-concussion syndrome, happens in it depends, but the research says between 10 to 15% of cases go on to experience PCS. Not everyone's case, though, goes on for like 6 years. There are people who have PCS who within a year are perfectly fine and functioning. It's really case dependent, so I wouldn't necessarily say it's common, but it's not super rare where it's unheard of. I think it's just something that we aren't aware of, and it's like new science coming out. Within the last 10 years, there's been a lot of new science and research papers on concussion education, as well as like migraine disease. I mean, the first migraine-specific medication was only introduced like 4 years ago. So it's still just very new science and a lot of research to be had. But I wouldn't say it's not that common. Most people who have concussions are able to recover without going on to experience PCS. It's really just case dependent.
How have your friendships?
No, you're good.
How have your friendships changed like throughout your journey?
Yeah. So this happened my senior year. There are a few people in my senior year that I thought I would have been closer with, but I was out of school for 7 weeks, and then I wasn't able to go to prom or graduation or anything like that. So it definitely put some distance between certain friends, but I'm really grateful to have a handful of really, really good friends that have been able to stick by my side and change along with me. In the beginning, I couldn't really speak to them, so they would just kind of come over and just sit in my dark room quietly and hang out with me. And as I've been able to improve more, they've been able to accommodate me in that way where they will call me more. There was times where they wouldn't call me because they know it would be too much. So I've been really grateful to have friends that are willing to love me no matter what situation I'm in. And that includes these RYLA people. Oh gosh, emotions again. That includes the people who are in this room.
Were you able to go to RYLA before that whole thing happened to you? And if not, how did you find out about RYLA?
Yeah, so I was actually conferee, so just like you guys. And then I was on staff as a junior counselor after my conferee year. So junior counselor year, I hadn't had my injury. Senior counselor, when I would have been on staff, is when I had my injury, So I had reached out to Katie Ann saying hey, I have a concussion, I have no idea how I'm going to feel. I don't know what I'm going to be capable of doing and participating, because as you guys have noticed, RYLA is a very high energy, very loud, very animated and activated and active camp for the week. So I was hey, I have no idea what I can do. So staff was able to accommodate for me and my abilities and allowed me to do jobs that they didn't purposely intend for me to do. And even today, I can't come every single day of RYLA. I was here on Sunday for a few hours, and then yesterday was a rest and recovery day. I'm here today for my speech, but likely tomorrow, I'm not going to be here, and I'm going to try to come again on Thursday. So I was able to still participate in RYLA, but it looks different. And I'm just really lucky and grateful to have the people of RYLA be understanding and accommodating and accepting of what I am able to give. And they recognize that, and they've never pressured me to try to give more or made me feel guilty for not being able to do what I would like to do, or what maybe some expectations of other staff are. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. I'm really grateful for that.
Thank you guys for all the questions. It's amazing.